The night I introduced my girlfriend to my parents, my mom started crying in the kitchen and my dad told me to take her home early, but neither of them would explain what she'd done. Up until that night, I had honestly believed my life was settled. Not perfect, not movie-level happy, but stable in a way that felt rare for someone in their early 30s. I had a steady job coordinating shipments for a logistics company near the port in Tampa, a decent apartment that didn't smell like mildew, and a relationship that felt easy in the way people always say relationships are supposed to feel but rarely do. Hannah and I met at a mutual friend's barbecue. Nothing dramatic. No sparks flying across the yard. She just asked if the extra folding chair was taken, sat down next to me, and started talking like we'd already skipped the awkward stranger phase. By the end of the night we were debating whether pineapple belonged on pizza and sharing a plate of overcooked burgers like we'd done it 100 times before. She worked as a veterinary technician at a clinic about 20 minutes from my place. She had this calm, grounded energy, the kind of person animals trust immediately. I saw it the first time I picked her up from work. A nervous golden retriever that had been whining nonstop quieted the second she crouched down and touched its ears. That told me more about her than any dating profile could. 6 months in, I knew I was serious. Not in the dramatic, "I can't live without her" way, but in the steady, "I want this person in my life 10 years from now" way. So I did what you're supposed to do. I invited her to Sunday dinner. My parents live in Clearwater in a quiet neighborhood where every house looks like it came from the same catalog, trimmed hedges, beige stucco, driveways wide enough for boats nobody actually uses. I grew up there. Sunday dinners were a routine that never changed, even after I moved out. My mom, Diane, was the type of person who believed hospitality was a moral obligation. Nobody left her house hungry. Nobody left without leftovers. She asked too many questions, but in a way that usually felt warm, not invasive. My dad, Greg, was quieter. Retired fire captain, built like someone who used to carry people out of burning buildings for a living. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it mattered. I told Hannah on the drive over that my mom might interrogate her about her job, her family, her childhood, her favorite color, basically everything short of her blood type. "She sounds intense," Hannah said, smiling. "She just wants to know who you are," I told her. "If she likes you, she'll feed you until you physically can't move." Hannah laughed. She wasn't nervous. If anything, I was. When we pulled into the driveway, everything looked normal. My dad's truck. My mom's little sedan. Lights on inside. The smell of something roasting drifting out when I opened the car door. We walked up together. I remember thinking how natural it felt, her hand in mine, like this was just the next step in a life already moving forward. I knocked. My mom opened the door almost immediately, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She smiled when she saw me. Then she looked past me at Hannah. And the smile just disappeared. Not faded. Not softened. It was like someone had flipped a switch behind her eyes. Her face went pale in a way that didn't look like surprise. It looked like shock layered over something heavier. Fear, maybe? Or grief. I couldn't tell. All I knew was that she suddenly looked like she needed to sit down. "Mom?" I said, half laughing because I assumed she was about to say something embarrassing. "This is Hannah." Hannah stepped forward slightly, polite, warm. "Hi, it's so nice to meet you." My mom didn't take her hand. She didn't say hello. She just stared at her for a long second, too long, like she was trying to place her or confirm something she didn't want to believe. Then she turned to me, hugged me tightly, tighter than usual, and stepped aside without looking at Hannah again. "Come in," she said quietly. The house smelled like rosemary and garlic. Normally comforting. That night it felt weirdly suffocating. My dad came out from the living room, smiling, wiping his hands on his jeans. "There you are." He shook my hand, then Hannah's, friendly and normal. "Good to meet you. Lucas has told us a lot about you." For a moment, I thought maybe I'd imagined my mom's reaction. Then I saw her standing in the kitchen doorway, watching us like she wasn't part of the conversation. Dinner started off strained. Not openly hostile. Not rude. Just wrong in a way that was hard to pinpoint. My dad carried most of the conversation, asking Hannah about her job at the clinic, what kind of animals she worked with, whether she preferred dogs or cats. She answered easily, telling a funny story about a parrot that swore at everyone except her. Normally my mom would have jumped in, laughing, asking follow-up questions, offering more food every 5 minutes. Instead, she moved around the kitchen silently, refilling glasses, adjusting dishes that didn't need adjusting, avoiding eye contact. At one point Hannah tried to include her. Lucas said you make the best roast chicken. My mom nodded without smiling. It's just a recipe. That was it. No. Thank you. No. I'm glad you like it. Nothing. I kept glancing between them, waiting for the tension to break. It didn't. Halfway through dinner, my mom suddenly stood up and said she needed to check something in the kitchen, even though everything was already on the table. A minute later, I heard a sound I had never heard from her before. Crying? Not loud sobbing. More like someone trying desperately not to make noise and failing anyway. I froze. My dad did too. We looked at each other across the table, both pretending we hadn't heard it. Hannah looked confused. Is she okay? Yeah. My dad said quickly, too quickly. She just gets overwhelmed sometimes. That was not true. My mom didn't get overwhelmed. She handled emergencies with the emotional range of a surgeon. I stood up. I'll check on her. My dad grabbed my wrist under the table. Not hard, but firm. Give her a minute, he said quietly. His face looked worried. Not annoyed. Not embarrassed. Genuinely worried. After another minute, my mom came back, eyes slightly red but otherwise composed. If I hadn't heard it, I might not have noticed. She didn't sit down. She just stood there, hands gripping the back of her chair. I think it might be best if you take Hannah home early, she said, voice tight but controlled. The room went completely still. What? I said, genuinely thinking I'd misheard. My dad didn't look at me. He stared down at his plate. It's getting late, my mom added. It was barely 7. Hannah looked at me, then at my parents, clearly trying to figure out what she'd done wrong. I'm sorry if I said something, she started. You didn't. My mom cut in quickly. Too quickly. You didn't do anything. Then she turned away like she couldn't stand to look at her. That was the moment my stomach dropped. Because if Hannah hadn't done anything, then why did it feel like she had? I drove her home in silence for the first few minutes. The air between us felt heavy, thick with unasked questions. Finally she said, very softly, Does your mom not like me? I wanted to say no. I wanted to laugh it off, blame stress, anything. But the image of my mom crying in the kitchen wouldn't leave my head. I don't know, I admitted. Hannah stared out the window the rest of the drive. When we pulled up to her apartment, she didn't get out right away. She looked at me like she knew me, she said quietly. But I've never met her before. I would remember. I didn't know what to say to that. Because the truth was, I'd had the exact same thought. And for the first time since I met Hannah, a small, uneasy feeling settled in my chest. Something had happened tonight that I didn't understand. Something that had nothing to do with anything Hannah had said or done. And I had a sinking feeling it wasn't going to go away. I kept replaying the night in my head, trying to find a moment where Hannah had said something wrong, done something strange, anything that could explain why my mom had reacted like she'd been blindsided by a tragedy instead of meeting her son's girlfriend. There wasn't one. Over the next few weeks, I tried to pretend things would normalize on their own. That maybe my mom had just been having a bad day, or feeling sick, or overwhelmed by something she didn't want to talk about. People have off nights. Families recover. Except she didn't. The next time I mentioned Hannah on the phone, my mom went quiet in that careful way people do when they're choosing their words too deliberately. How is she? She asked eventually, like she was talking about someone who had moved away, not someone I was seeing almost every day. She's good, I said. She asked if you were okay. Another pause. I'm fine. No follow-up question. No. Tell her I said hello? Nothing. A few days later, I asked if we could come by for dinner again, thinking maybe a reset would help. Oh, this Sunday won't work, she said quickly. We have plans. My parents had done the exact same thing every Sunday for 30 years. Next week then? I'll have to check. She never checked. If I went alone, everything felt normal. She made too much food, asked about work, complained about my dad leaving tools everywhere. But the moment Hannah came up, it was like someone had turned off the lights behind her eyes. Once, I said casually, Anna got promoted to senior tech at the clinic. My mom's hand froze halfway to her coffee cup. That's good, she said after a long second. It wasn't jealousy. It wasn't disapproval. It felt more like she was bracing herself. Hannah noticed too. She tried not to make a big deal out of it, but I could tell it bothered her. She doesn't hate me, Hannah said one night while we were cooking dinner together. Hate feels different. It's like I make her uncomfortable. I didn't have a better explanation. A few times my mom made comments that stuck with me. Are you sure you know everything about her? Or, some people aren't what they seem at first. I'd ask what she meant, and she'd immediately backtrack. Nothing. I'm just being protective. Protective from what? It started to feel less like concern and more like she was waiting for something bad to happen. About a year into our relationship, Hannah and I started talking about moving in together. Not impulsively. We'd practically been living at each other's places already. It just made sense financially and emotionally. When I told my parents, my dad said it sounded like a good step. My mom didn't even pretend to be pleased. I think you're rushing, she said flatly. We've been together over a year, I replied. That's not rushing. She pressed her lips together. Sometimes time doesn't tell you everything. I felt irritation spike. Okay, then what does? She didn't answer. That was the moment something inside me shifted from confusion to anger. Mom, if you have a problem with Hannah, just say it, I said. Because this weird vague stuff is getting old. She looked at me for a long time. Her eyes looked tired in a way I hadn't noticed before. I can't talk about it, she said quietly. Not won't. Can't. The distinction hit me harder than I expected. Why not? She shook her head. Please don't push this. So I stopped pushing. Not because I was satisfied, but because I could tell I wasn't going to get anything. Hannah moved in anyway. Life, surprisingly, got better. Sharing space with her felt natural. We settled into routines, grocery runs, late-night TV, arguing over thermostat settings. It felt like building something real. My parents adjusted too, at least on the surface. My mom stopped making excuses to avoid seeing us entirely, though she still kept interactions brief and overly formal, like Hannah was a coworker she didn't fully trust. My dad, on the other hand, seemed to like her more each time we visited. They'd talk about random things, fishing, home repairs, news stories, and for a few moments everything felt normal. Then I proposed. It wasn't elaborate. No flash mob, no public spectacle. Just a quiet evening at the park where we'd had one of our first real conversations, sitting on a bench overlooking the water while the sun went down. I told her I didn't want a perfect life, just a real one with her in it. She said yes before I even finished asking. For a few days, it felt like we were floating. Calling friends, celebrating, talking about dates and venues, and all the small details that suddenly seemed important. Calling my parents should have been one of the happiest conversations. My dad answered. When I told him, he sounded genuinely excited. That's wonderful, son. Really? Then he said he'd put my mom on. Are you sure you want to do this? She said instead of congratulations. I thought she was joking at first. Yeah, I said, laughing awkwardly. Pretty sure. Another long silence. I just want you to be certain, she said carefully. Something in my chest tightened. Why wouldn't I be? I don't know, she said quickly. I just... Her voice cracked, and she stopped. That scared me more than anything she'd said before. Mom, what is going on? I asked. You've been acting weird about Hannah for over a year. If there's something I should know, just tell me. I can't, she whispered. The sound of her crying came through the phone before she hung up. I stared at the screen for a long time. Hannah asked what she said. I told her the watered-down version, that my mom was emotional, overwhelmed, needed time. I didn't want to ruin the moment. But inside, something was unraveling. 3 days later, my dad asked if we could meet. Just the two of us. We met at a casual waterfront restaurant halfway between Tampa and Clearwater. The kind of place with plastic menus and seagulls hovering like they owned the parking lot. He looked older than I remembered. Not physically, just tired, like he'd been carrying something heavy for a long time. After we ordered, he didn't make small talk. Your mother doesn't hate Hannah, he said. I hadn't realized how badly I needed to hear that. Then what is it? I asked. He stared out at the water for a while before answering. She's afraid. Afraid of what? Another long pause. There are things from the past, he said slowly. Complicated things. Your mother doesn't want them to hurt you. That made no sense. What things? He shook his head. It's not my place. I felt frustration surge. Then whose place is it? Because right now it feels like everyone knows something except me. He rubbed his face, looking genuinely torn. Some chapters are better left closed, he said finally. That line stuck with me in the worst way. Because if something is truly harmless, you don't have to bury it. I drove home with a knot in my stomach that wouldn't loosen. Hannah was on the couch when I got back, scrolling through wedding ideas on her laptop. She looked up, smiling, then immediately frowned when she saw my face. What happened? I told her everything. She listened quietly, not interrupting, just absorbing it all. When I finished, she didn't speak for a long time. Then she said something that didn't seem connected at all. Your mom's maiden name, it's Harper, right? Yeah, I said slowly. Why? She looked uneasy, like she wasn't sure she should continue. That was my mom's last name too, before she got married. I blinked. Harper isn't that uncommon. I know, she said quickly. It's probably nothing. I just thought it was weird. Her mom had been married before Hannah's dad. I knew that much. Hannah had mentioned it in passing early in our relationship, but said it ended badly and her mom never talked about it. Still, something about the coincidence made my chest feel tight. You want to call her? I asked. Hannah hesitated, then nodded. She stepped onto the balcony for privacy. I stayed inside, suddenly very aware of how quiet the apartment felt without her voice. The call didn't last long. When she came back inside, she looked pale in a way I had never seen before. What did she say? I asked. Hannah swallowed. She confirmed she was married to someone named Gregory Harper in her 20s. My dad's name is Gregory. For a moment, my brain refused to connect the dots. That could still be coincidence, I said weakly. But even as I said it, I knew it wasn't. She lived in Clearwater back then, Anna added quietly. Same neighborhood your parents live in now. The room felt smaller, like the air had thickened. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, Hannah said, barely above a whisper, Lucas, what if our families already knew each other? And for the first time, I realized my mom hadn't been reacting to a stranger at the door. She'd been reacting to something she recognized. Something she thought she'd never have to face again. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my mom's face when she opened the door, that instant shift from warm to hollow, like something inside her had dropped out. And now, knowing Hannah's mother had once been married to my dad, the memory felt less confusing and more ominous. By morning, the uncertainty had turned into something sharper. I didn't want theories anymore. I wanted the truth. I drove to my parents' house without calling first. My mom answered the door wearing the same expression she'd had that night, not surprised to see me, just tense, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. Lucas, she said softly. We need to talk, I replied. She stepped aside without arguing. My dad was in the living room, standing instead of sitting, hands shoved in his pockets. He looked at me, then at my mom, like he already knew why I was there. Did you know Hannah's mom used to be married to you? I asked him directly. He closed his eyes for a second before nodding. Yes. My mom made a small sound, almost like a suppressed sob. So you both knew, I said, my voice rising despite my effort to stay calm. And no one thought to mention it before I got engaged? It wasn't relevant, my dad said quietly. Not relevant. I laughed, but there was nothing funny about it. Your son is about to marry the daughter of your ex-wife. How is that not relevant? My mom finally spoke. We didn't think you'd ever meet her. Her words hung in the air like something fragile. Meet her? I repeated. She lives 30 minutes away. She didn't always, my dad said. The room felt smaller by the second. I sat down heavily on the couch, suddenly exhausted. Start from the beginning, please. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Then my dad sat across from me, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. I married Hannah's mother when I was 23, he said. It was fast. Too fast. We barely knew each other. My mom stayed standing behind him, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. The marriage didn't last even a year, he continued. We argued constantly. We wanted different things. It ended badly. How badly? I asked. He hesitated. There was a lot of anger. Accusations. Things said that couldn't be unsaid. That was vague enough to be useless. Did she cheat? I asked bluntly. My dad flinched. My mom looked away. It doesn't matter now, he said. It matters to me. Another long silence. Finally, my mom spoke, her voice thin. There were suspicions. Nothing ever proven. Something about the way she said it made my stomach twist. So you don't actually know what happened, I said. We know enough, she replied quickly. My dad shot her a warning look, but she kept going. Your father was devastated after that divorce. It took years for him to trust anyone again. When we met, he was still carrying it. She looked at me then, eyes shiny with unshed tears. I spent a long time feeling like I was competing with someone who wasn't even there anymore. That explained part of it. Not all of it. So when you saw Hannah, I said slowly, you saw her mother. My mom nodded, swallowing hard. She looks just like she did at that age. The same smile, the same eyes. It was like the past walked through the door. I could almost understand that. Almost. But it didn't explain the fear. You weren't just uncomfortable, I said. You were terrified. Neither of them answered. Is there something else? I asked quietly. My dad shook his head. No. My mom hesitated just a fraction too long. That hesitation said everything. Mom. She pressed her lips together, tears finally spilling over. I don't want you dragged into old pain that has nothing to do with you. It clearly has something to do with me, I said. I'm marrying her daughter. She covered her face with her hands. I just don't want you to get hurt. By what? No answer. Eventually, the conversation circled back to the same point. The marriage had ended. There was no overlap. No chance Hannah was my dad's child. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing scandalous. On paper, it all checked out. Emotionally, it didn't. When I told Hannah what they'd said, she listened quietly, arms wrapped around her knees on the couch. That's it? She asked when I finished. Just a bad divorce? Apparently. She didn't look convinced. My mom won't talk about it either, she said. When I told her your dad's name, she got really defensive. Said it was ancient history, and she didn't want to revisit it. Do you think she's hiding something? Hannah stared at the wall for a long time. I don't know, she said finally. But both sides acting like this makes it feel bigger than they're admitting. After that, things got awkward in a way that never really improved. My mom started trying too hard. Smiling constantly, offering Hannah food every 5 minutes, complimenting her clothes, her hair, her cooking, all the things she hadn't done before. It felt less like acceptance and more like someone trying to smooth over a crack in glass. My dad stayed polite but distant, like he was afraid of saying the wrong thing. Hannah's mom refused to attend anything where my parents would be present. Birthday dinners, engagement party planning, even casual meetups. There was always an excuse. Scheduling conflict, work emergency, not feeling well. Once, Hannah asked her directly if she was avoiding my family. Her mom said, I just think it's better for everyone if we keep things simple. Simple didn't feel like the right word. It felt like avoidance. Months passed. Wedding planning moved forward, but there was always this underlying tension, like a low electrical hum you couldn't quite tune out. One night, after another frustrating phone call with her mom, Hannah said something half-joking that didn't feel like a joke at all. What if we're related somehow, and no one wants to check? I laughed automatically. We're not related. But even as I said it, a cold feeling settled in my stomach. Because technically, we didn't know that for sure. The timelines made it extremely unlikely. Both families insisted there was no overlap. But the intensity of everyone's reactions made it hard to trust that we'd been told everything. I mean, not siblings or anything, Hannah said quickly. But distant cousins or something. Wouldn't that be the worst twist ever? I tried to joke back, but it fell flat. That night, lying in bed next to her, I stared at the ceiling for hours, wondering how much truth you actually need to build a future with someone. Was it enough to know the basics? Or did the things people refuse to talk about matter more? We're still engaged. The wedding is still on the calendar. On the surface, everything looks normal. But family gatherings are careful, choreographed events where certain topics never come up. My mom and Hannah's mom have still never been in the same room. My dad shuts down instantly if I mention the past. And sometimes, when Hannah isn't looking, I catch my mom watching her with this complicated expression, not anger anymore, not even fear exactly. Something closer to grief. Like she's seeing two timelines at once, and doesn't know which one she belongs in. Part of me wants to dig until I uncover every detail, no matter how ugly. Another part of me is terrified of what that might destroy. Because maybe everyone else has already decided the truth isn't worth the fallout. So now I'm stuck wondering whether building a marriage on top of unanswered questions is reckless, or just what every family does in different ways. If you were in my position, would you keep pushing until you knew everything, or accept that some secrets stay buried for a reason?